Hello and welcome to the Practical Animal channel. Today's video continues the series of videos that I announced recently that I'd be doing, profiling, describing individual animal industry occupations, individual jobs that I've held personally. So this is the second in the series of 4 videos. The first one was what it was like to be an animal management lecturer. Today's video is on what it's like working in a big falcon breeding facility. The next one in the series is going to be about what it's like working in the role of National Bird Control Specialist, controlling feral pigeons for a facilities management company. And the final one is going to be about what it's like being an auxiliary veterinary nurse and animal handler in a veterinary practice. But on to today's video on what it's like working in a falcon facility. Falcon breeding became routine with the publication of a manual called Falcon Propagation, written by Professor Tom Cade and his team from the Peregrine Fund at the Laboratory of Ornithology at Cornell University. The results of that manual were then applied to raptor conservation. For example, the breeding of the Mauritius kestrel, which was saved from extinction, and those techniques were also applied to breeding falcons for the purposes of falconry. Now, an interesting thing has happened in recent years in the animal industry, in that falcon racing has become very popular. So falcons nowadays are bred either for falcon racing or for hunting. The breeding calendar works like this. Falcons that are being bred for hunting or for racing, the quiet period is outside of the breeding season. So breeding season is from early February through to the end of August or September. The rest of the year, falcons are not breeding. And by falcons, I mean, for example, peregrine falcons, gyr falcons, and saker falcons. Most of the time, I would say, the falcons that are produced are hybrid falcons. Hybrids because the market requires that traits are blended from between 1 or 2 species, hence hybridization. As soon as the days start to get longer, the breeding season begins, and so from early February, falcon facilities usually have staff in place, and by that I mean they have allocated staff who are going to be responsible for imprinting chicks. So the breeding season goes from, as I've said, early February through to September, more or less. When you work for a falcon facility, well, in my personal experience, I was given the choice of either committing to imprinting chicks or to doing yard work. At the site where I worked, yard work involved working from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Every day, and with a couple of days off, although that subsequently changed as the breeding season wore on. However, if you are allocated to imprint chicks as the breeding season wears on, then that is an entirely different commitment, or at least it was at the falcon facility where I worked. And you were required to live on site and be on site whenever the birds that you were imprinting were receptive to you, showing signs of receptivity. If you didn't live on site, then you were expected to live close by so that you could be contactable by walkie-talkie or mobile phone and be on site within minutes in order to encourage receptivity in your female bird and to be on hand to feed imprint chicks. The morning routine would begin with food preparation. Outside of the breeding season, so from September through to the end of January, adult falcons are fed a maintenance diet, usually of day-old chick. Obviously, I'm making a lot of generalizations here, and the routine will differ depending on the business needs of different falcon facilities, but I'm talking about the one that I worked at. From the beginning of the breeding season, the diet of the birds was changed to a high value protein diet. High value protein being protein that is easily absorbed and easily digestible and highly metabolizable. So that is the in-depth explanation of what a high protein diet is, high quality protein diet is. So that translates into quail, and we would be prepared to, we would have to prepare freshly killed quail that was lean and fat-free, and we would have to prepare, at the height of the season, it would take several hours to prepare the quail for feeding. We had to work in a team, and by processing, by preparing the food in as routine a way as possible, paying attention to the details of how to prepare the food, that saved time when we were faced with preparing several dozen or several hundred individual quail for feeding to the falcons. At the beginning of the season, individual adult falcons were paired off. Those pairings were made possible based upon history of the pairs. Had they bred successfully in the past? Had they they were put together based on business needs in the hopes that they would be compatible. CCTV was placed in individual breeding pens. The adult birds were caught up from their hack pens and placed into their pairs, into their breeding chambers. They were then closely monitored over CCTV 24 hours a day for the remainder of the breeding season to make sure that they were indeed compatible and they didn't attack each other. As the season wore on, CCTV was monitored for incubating females to make sure the incubating females were incubating, that they did not show signs of ill health, that they were turning the eggs. Of course, some eggs were placed in incubators, some were left with their parents to be parent reared. When a chick hatches, the hatching process begins at pipping, where the egg tooth on the end of the beak pokes through the eggshell, but the hatching process can take many, many hours. Candling was used to make sure that eggs were fertile. As the season wore on then, it was decided which chicks would be parent reared and which chicks would be imprinted and taken from the parents, or hatched in an incubator and put into imprint chambers. I think I've mentioned that staff that were going to be imprinting birds had to live on site and basically be available 24 hours a day whenever the imprint females, whenever the semen donating males were showing signs of being ready to be manipulated so that they could produce semen. Hats were used for imprinted males to copulate on, and the semen was collected in those rubber-brimmed hats. There's an excellent description of the hat that is used in falcon propagation in the book Last Chance to See by Mark Cowdery and Douglas Adams. I refer to the chapter on the Mauritius Kestrel project. So moving on then, when for those chicks that were to be imprinted, that were hatched in incubators, they were then placed in imprint chambers, large perspex affairs, and they had to be fed 4 times a day by the people who were handling the birds. They were fed a specially prepared high protein diet of minced quail, or finely chopped quail, quail meat and quail liver, mixed with a little water, mixed with a little blood rather. What else was it like? So the imprinted chicks were fed until their crops started to bulge. I'm assuming prior knowledge of basic bird of prey biology here in this video. Use of hack pens, the use of bulging crops, for example. Hack pen is a very, very large, for want of a better word, cage where several dozen or several score of falcons are kept together, where they're able to fly quite freely within the hack pen, and they can get fit. A bulging crop, well, anatomically, birds of prey, not owls, but diurnal birds of prey, have a crop, a pouch that is at the top of a pouch-like structure that lies at the top of the digestive system, and it's where food is stored for several minutes or hours after it's ingested by the bird, and then it's put over into the proventriculus, into the stomach. So that is how the feeding was done with imprint chicks, with parent reared chicks being monitored by CCTV. Once hatched, they were fed by the parents, and then when they fledged, they would inevitably fall from the nest, scrape quite harmlessly to the gravel floor, and they were said to be becoming independent when they could fly back up from the ground of the breeding chamber back up to the nest scrape. Then it was time to, when they're very young, just after hatching, they are close ringed. That's a ring with an individual breeder's number on it, and then they were placed, when they reached independence, then they were placed in a hack chamber to be able to fly around, to socialize, and to get stronger and get fitter. That occurred for several weeks until they were ready to be caught up. The hack chambers were designed so that there would be a trapping day where bait or quail was placed in the adjacent trap rooms next to the main hack chambers, the main hack pens. Then they were hooded to keep them calm, checked for health, boxed up, and taken to an airport ready for export. So that is a very brief summary of my experience of the routine during the breeding season of breeding high quality falcons at a UK based falcon facility. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please like the video, and for more exclusive content on wildlife, the countryside and the animal industry, please subscribe to the channel. The next video in this series is going to be covering the pest control industry, and the role is that of National Bird Control Specialist. So travelling up and down the country with Harris's hawks, air rifles and netting to serve a customer that was nationwide to prevent ingress of feral pigeons and gulls into food establishments. So look out for that one. On a completely separate issue, we've got interviews coming up with David Rampling, who is a wildlife artist, and he flies New Zealand falcons. He's going to be talking about New Zealand falcons and his experiences using the hacking technique to keep his birds in condition. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please click like. For more exclusive content, please subscribe. That's content on wildlife, the countryside and the animal industry. And yes, finally, what I wanted to say, in a few months from now, at the start of the flying season, I'm going to be offering free falconry classes to the first 100 students that come to me. We're located in northern Britain, close to all the major motorway networks. We're well connected, and if you would like falconry lessons, get in touch. I'm John Beaumont. Thanks for your attention. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.